Country Media Order and welcome to my review for Evidence. This is another found footage movie slash reality type based. I've got to say I'm actually pretty excited for this movie. When I first saw the trailer a couple months back, I absolutely loved the concept, loved the look of the trailer. It was really interesting to see this movie for sure. Interesting cast also, and yeah, pretty pumped for it, pretty excited. And I just finished watching it right now, and I got to say, I'm really impressed yet again. Another well done found footage horror thriller, really well done, very edge gripping, very exciting, very interesting kind of use of the found footage genre mixed in with that kind of reality type movie format. It was done really well, and I was actually genuinely quite impressed with it. So let's talk about Evidence.
Why did you break up the sun?
Okay, first thing I want to say about this film, this is the 2013 Evidence I will be reviewing, not the 2012 other found footage movie. It's a very different concept, it's a very different idea that movie has, not to be compared and to linked with this movie. To be completely honest, both movies are very different from each other. The only thing they have in common is the fact they have the same name and they're in the same genre. Both movies are very different. This Evidence is more of a horror thriller mixed in that kind of reality type format and solving the mystery of who the killer is, in a sense. The 2012 Evidence is more kind of a instance that actually happens to a bunch of friends on an actual camping trip. So these two movies should not be compared to each other, and if they are compared, it's a little silly in all fairness. They're both two very different movies in their own right. Two well done movies, I have to say, completely honest. I really love the year 2012 Evidence, and I really enjoyed this 2013 Evidence also. So both movies deserve to be well received in their own right and should not be compared to each other. I'd like to say the 2013 Evidence also is directed by the same guy who did The Fourth Kind, another found footage type reality type movie. I gotta say that movie was not particularly the best, but it's a nice starting ground for the director, and I think he definitely improved with this project for sure. So the storyline for Evidence follows a bunch of FBI investigators that are using video footage shot by the actual victims themselves to try and piece together this kind of mass murder that happened at an abandoned gas station. Now the storyline I thought was actually really well done. I really love the idea of the concept, the idea of, you know, you piecing together kind of found footage and using them in an actual crime scene and a kind of a real-time event, and kind of piecing together these footage to find out who the actual killer was. I thought that was actually a very interesting concept. That's why I was kind of pumped for the movie, and I really liked the trailer, how it was kind of portrayed. The actual movie itself takes less than 5 minutes to get into the actual concept itself. Okay, an incident has happened at an abandoned gas station. We've got the video files. Let's get straight to it. Let's find this killer. And the pacing of the actual movie is really fast. It's really interesting. We get to see from 4 different type of view cameras. There's one professional camera. There's 2 mobile phone cameras, and there's a basic kind of cheap, you know, camcorder that's actually in the scene. And between those 4 cameras, we're kind of piecing together all these footages. And I really like how they kind of introduce the kind of the reality and then switch into the actual found footage themselves. What they actually do is, because they play all the actual video files on an actual TV monitor, the actual camera zooms into the actual footage, and you're actually seeing it from obviously what they're playing on the screen. So as the actual footage is playing, the actual reality, the actual investigators themselves are watching the footage. There's moments where the actual screen freezes or glitches, and they kind of, you know, they spot something on camera and they're kind of analysing it. One of my favourite shots from the movie was the 4x3 kind of, you know, square type box shots, and then they kind of moved into a kind of widescreen. Then they messed around the kind of the colour scheme and the actual brightness, and I really like the idea of that shot. It made it more cinematic, and they made it more kind of like, you know, that's what the professional camera they're using, and they're messing around with it to make it look better for the audience in a sense. And when it wants to go back into reality again, the actual camera pulls away from the actual footage and it goes back into that kind of little room where it talks about the actual investigators and they actually found something on the actual camera itself. I think they mixed the found footage element and the actual real-time reality really well with each other. There's definitely enough screen time between the actual characters. I thought they experimented with the camera really well. They've got lots of different kind of shots between like night vision, the kind of the rusty kind of, you know, handheld shots, the kind of the open establishing shots, and it was done really well in terms of camera work, and between characters wise also. We got to know these characters really well, especially when they actually start the movie. I get to see the constant reality of the actual people that are playing the actual footage. And then we come back to the actual found footage themselves, the actual characters that were in this instance, that were part of the victims. And the character development in the actual movie is really well done. The first half an hour is pure character development between the actual, the main cast and the victims of the actual incident themselves. We find out who they are and their personalities, and they're really interesting characters. Really got of them really well. I didn't hate I actually did not hate any of the actual characters at all. There was no douchebags, apart from that one character was a little bit of a prick to one of the girls in it. But to be perfectly honest, even he stepped up, you know. And these people actually do really fight back as well. When this serial killer hits the actual victims, they do put up a really good fight, and it's nice to see that in the actual movie. It's really well done. And the serial killer in this movie I thought was really well done. I love the idea of having a kind of a full protective gear, the mask on, and they're using a blowtorch. I thought it was a very different approach for an actual serial killer. I think it's only been touched upon one or two of the movies that I've seen, but this one he went full on town. You know, he actually uses the actual blowtorch. He actually does some really nasty kills, some really violent kills, which of course you'll see on the actual movie. And he actually uses it, for God's sake. There's a bit where like he's having the blowtorch and he's like ripping through the actual metal door in a sense, and you see the flame coming up. I thought, it's fuck yeah, awesome. This killer means business for sure, and it's fucking awesome. There's definitely some really wow shots in the movie. Being the fact that it's kind of POV, and there's an incident where like a person is running away from the actual killer itself, and they're using the camera as a moving kind of image, and as the actual killer's coming close with the blowtorch kind of thing, and you can see the camera moving away. Very interesting use of camera work, very impressive in terms of, you know, back and forth between the, you know, reality and the different types of format of cameras. And the movie's classed as a horror thriller, and to be perfectly honest, I think it's more of an actual thriller than it is an actual horror movie, if I can be completely honest. I felt it's got like horror-like elements in the actual scenes, especially when the serial killers are up and close on the camera. But I felt it was more like a race against time, finding out who the killer was. It was definitely edge-gripping for your seat. For a 90-minute movie, I was definitely hooked from start to finish. I wanted to know what happened to these characters. I felt it was very edge-gripping, I felt it was very exciting, and I definitely wanted to know who the killer was, what the motivation was, and the actual horror elements in the side I felt was a bit weak for an actual horror movie in a sense. I felt there was horror elements in the actual movie, but not enough to class it under that kind of genre. I felt some of the kills are quite gruesome and are quite nasty, and definitely quite different from other movies that I've seen, but they wasn't really enough. I would say this is more an intense thriller with horror elements in the actual movie, with a bit of found footage. Even though it's got the setup for a horror movie and the idea of like, you know, these characters going through kind of a cat and mouse chase type event, with the idea of the killer kind of chasing them using the blowtorch and using kind of other means of trying to kill them and pick them off one by one. Being the fact that it's done from a kind of a found footage point of view, in the sense that the actual footage is already done, you kind of lose the survival aspect of the characters trying to escape from the killer, and you kind of lose that kind of horror, intense atmosphere. Being the fact it's already been recorded and documented, but I'd say it's more of an actual intense thriller more than an actual horror movie. Now the actual ending of the movie I thought was actually really awesome. I felt it was definitely delivered, it definitely was a payoff. I was really hoping they did not go for the actual stereotype ending, which I figured, please don't do it, because when you watch the movie, you're kind of thinking like, it's going to be that character, isn't it? And you're thinking, and luckily they didn't go for the obvious choice. They actually went for something a little different, and the explanation itself and the actual reasonings for it, I thought was actually genuinely quite clever, and it made me think about, yes, some of the earlier lines and quotes from the actual start of the movie. It all made sense. It was a very interesting process. Some people might not like the actual ending twist, some people might say it coming maybe, but I thought it actually was genuinely quite clever, and I felt it was a very smart ending to actually end the movie on, and it made you kind of like, it made sense. Definitely a worthwhile ending for sure, and I will definitely buy it on Blu-ray and DVD just for that ending alone. I was really hoping for the ending to pay off, and it really did. So that's been my review for Everett. I hope you enjoyed watching this movie. Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? Love to know your opinions. Comment down below. In the meantime, as you see, signing out.